We're going to go over part 1 of the Cnidaria notes for honors zoology. Right, so the phylum Cnidaria includes jellyfish, sea anemones, coral, as well as sea pins. And if you've never heard of a sea pin, it's this thing right here. They are the next level of complexity for animals after sponges. So sponges were super simple. These guys are slightly more complex, but still relatively simple compared to all of the future phylums we're going to learn about. Right. They do have tissue layers that are specialized to perform specific functions versus sponges did not have that, right? So Cnidarians don't have any bones, they don't have a heart, they don't have a brain, they don't have real eyes, and they don't have a respiratory system. So again, they're still pretty basic in complexity compared to a lot of our future animals we're going to look at. For their body plan, they have radial symmetry, which is a regular arrangement of similar body parts around a central axis. So like if you were to go top down or bottom up and you cut it like a pizza, it's going to be the same, right? They don't technically have a front or a back side. They do have a top and a bottom side that's different. And there are 2 basic forms of Cnidaria. There's the polyp form, which is a sac-like animal that's attached to something and they're sessile. And then they have the Medusa's one that's bell-like in shape. So polyps are like the sea anemones where they're stuck to the ground, and then Medusas are like the jellyfish that float around, right? Both will experience some of the animals will experience both forms during their lifetime, and others will spend their entire lives as one form or the other, right? Their body plan, they have an oral surface where their mouth is located and an aboral surface that's opposite end of their mouth. Right, so the oral surface on a jellyfish is like the tentacle side because the mouth is located in the center of all the tentacles, and then the aboral surface is their top side where they're which is opposite of their mouth. And then sea anemones, it's the opposite. The oral surface is their top where all their little tentacles are, and like the mouth is in the center, and then the aboral surface for them is the bottom. Right. Cnidaria will have what's called mesoglea, which is an extremely thick jelly-like and has jelly-like consistency to it. It makes up the largest portion of the animal. So it's kind of like what's inside of it, and it's how jellyfish got their name because they're full of jelly, all right? Not edible jelly, of course, all right? They have 2 layers that form their body wall. They have the external layer called the ectoderm and the endoderm, which is the internal layer that lines the gut. So in green here is the ectoderm, the outside. The mesoglea is this yellow blob in the middle that is between the 2 layers. And then the blue here is the endoderm. So endo, inside, is that internal layer, okay? They will have a centrally located mouth that's surrounded by tentacles, which are slender, finger-like extensions, and they use these tentacles to catch and handle their food. Their mouth will open up into a gut, which is called an enteron, where food is digested. The gut only has one opening, though, which is called the mouth. So everything enters and exits out the same exits out that one opening, which is the mouth. All right. So they basically throw up all the waste. All right. For stinging, they capture small prey by discharging what are called cnidocytes. These are the stinging cells. Which are unique structures found on the tentacles. And here's a close-up of them. They're kind of scary looking. So at the narrow outer edge of a cnidocyte is a short trigger hair called a cnidocyl. And then upon contact with prey, the contents of a nematocyst are explosively discharged and fire a dart-like thread containing a neurotoxin. So here you go. Here's the cnidocyl over here. It's like a little trigger. And then it releases, and it's got little barbs here. So, and we can see that on this picture here. So this little thing here is the prey. The tentacle has the stinging cell, and the nematocyst is inside of it, and it's coiled up, and then it releases and attaches. All right. So this whole thing is the cnidocyte, and then the nematocyst is inside of the cnidocyte. All right, we already went over that slide. Moving on. So these stinging cells contain poison arrows connected to threads called nematocyst. And so Cnidarians can still sting you when they are dead. So if you see a jellyfish washed up on the beach, it can still sting you even washed up on the beach. All right. So do not touch them. Just leave them be, to be all honest. All right. For feeding, after paralyzing its prey, a cnidarian will pull the prey through its mouth and into the gastrovascular cavity. That gastrovascular cavity is a digestive chamber with one opening. Again, it's only got the one mouth. Food enters and waste leaves again through that one opening. Okay. So they sting their prey, they bring it into their mouth, they digest it, and then they just throw it up. Right. Here's just some pictures of some jellyfish eating, because why not, really? So, and then feeding, a lot of jellyfish are going to feed on plankton. So either zooplankton or phytoplankton. We talked about these in the sponge notes, but zooplankton are technically microscopic animals. Phytoplankton are technically microscopic plants. All right. So for cnidarians to respond to their environment, that's one of the essential functions we talked about. Cnidarians will gather information from their environment using specialized sensory cells. Both the polypiform and medusas will have what's called a nerve net. And a nerve net is a loosely organized network of nerve cells that together allow cnidarians to detect stimuli such as the touch of a foreign object. So they can sense if something's touching them. And this is a hydra, which is a cnidarian. And you can, all these little blue lines are the nerve net, right? So basically just think of your skin just covered in a net and it can sense anything that touches you, which, I mean, we have sense cells that can do that. So it's not too far off. All right. And then cnidarians also have statocysts, which are a group of sensory cells that help determine the direction of gravity. So they can kind of figure out which way is up, which is always useful when you're swimming around the ocean. And then they have ocelli, which are eye spots made of cells that detect light. So they don't have a true eye, but the ocelli at least give them an idea of where the light's coming from. So generally that also helps them know which way is up, because obviously the light's going to come from above. Right. For movement, they are going to have what's called a hydrostatic skeleton, which consists of layers of circular muscles and a layer of longitudinal muscles that together will work with the water in the gastrovascular cavity to enable them to move. All right. So medusas, which are like the jellyfish shape, are going to move by jet propulsion. So they'll the muscles will contract and cause their bell-shaped body to close like an umbrella, and then they'll push water out of their body and it moves them forward. So they just open and close like you would an umbrella and go through the water. All right. For reproduction, some jellyfish are going to reproduce, some Cnidaria rather, will reproduce asexually by budding. And this is when they're in polyp forms. And then, so like the hydra. And then some will reproduce sexually by releasing gametes into the water. Some sexual forms of Cnidaria are monociduous and others are deciduous. So mono meaning that they can produce both sperm and eggs, and deciduous meaning they can produce one or the other, right? The eggs and sperm are released into the stomach, and then they go then through the mouth and out into the water. Right. In some cases, to produce or reproduce, a male releases his sperm into the surrounding water, which is spawning, which we've brought up a couple times already. And the sperm will swim into the mouth of the female jellyfish, allowing the fertilization of the egg or the ova there. All right. In other cases, sexual reproduction takes place completely externally in the water, which is external fertilization, and this takes place completely outside the body. The male and female release the eggs and sperm at the same time into the water, where they join up into a zygote. But that is it for part 1 of these notes. If you've got any questions, please let me know.